Let me welcome you all to my 8th video on the chapter Coordination Compounds. Of course, it is the last video of the chapter. In the previous video, we discussed crystal field theory. As an application of crystal field theory, we discussed the color of the complexes, the reason behind the color of the complexes. What we said, that is because of the DD transition between T2G and EG orbitals of the given complex. Is it not? When light falls in the complex, certain color of the visible region is absorbed, the remaining will be transmitted. The color of the transmitted radiation is complementary to the color of the absorbed radiation, and the color of the complex is color of the transmitted radiation, and that is the explanation that we had. We'll continue that discussion, color of the complexes. Under that, it is influence of ligand on the color of the complexes. In this particular discussion, we are going to study how this particular ligand is going to influence on the color of the complexes. For that purpose, I am going to take as it is a solution of nickel 2 chloride. When nickel 2 chloride is dissolved in water, you are going to get the complex of nickel with water molecules. You are going to get one complex, that is a complex of nickel with water molecules. Here, water molecules are acting like ligands. Nickel is a metal ion, is it not? This is a complex we got. This complex is, as it is, a green colored solution it is. Now, I am going to study effect of ligand on the color of this complex. I am going to study effect of the ligand on the color of this particular complex. For that purpose, I am going to select as it is one ligand, that is what we call it as ethane 1,2-diamine. We represent it as, yes, it is EN, is it not? Now, what I do here in this particular discussion, I am go on adding, yes, it is ethane 1,2-diamine solution to the complex of nickel 2 plus ion progressively in the ratio, yes, it is 1:1, or you can see that is 2:1, or you can see that in 3:1 ratios. I am progressively add the solution of ethane 1,2-diamine to the, yes, it is nickel 2 ion solution progressively in the molar ratio, ethylene diamine to nickel ion ratio, that is 1:1, 2:1 and 3:1 ratios. Then and you can observe the change in the color of the complexes. So for example, we have this nickel, as it is Ni, H2O 6 times, and of course 2 plus ion. As I said, this is green colored solution. That this is green colored solution. It is mixed with, as it is 1 mole of, yes, it is ethane 1,2-diamine solution. That is, if it is mixed with 1 mole of, yes, it is ethane 1,2-diamine solution, you are going to get a complex there. You are going to get a complex. Look at this. In this particular complex, there are 6 water molecules. Out of 6 water molecules, 2 water molecules are replaced by 1 ethane 1,2-diamine. Then you are going to get a complex that is 4 times, and of course this is En there. This 1 mole of, yes, it is ethane 1,2-diamine replaces 2 moles of water, because ethane 1,2-diamine is bidentate ligand. Water is a monodentate ligand. Because of that, 1 mole of ethane 1,2-diamine replaces 2 moles of water. You are going to get, this is a complex, hexa-aquo nickel 2 ion, is it not? And this is tetra-aquo ethane 1,2-diamine nickel 2 ion, yes. And of course, the color is, of course, this is pale blue colored solution. Look at this change in the color. Green colored solution is changed to pale blue colored solution, is it not? And to this particular solution, yes, if I add, yes, it is one more mole of, yes, it is ethane 1,2-diamine, yes. If I mix that particular solution, with, yes, it is 1 more mole of, yes, it is ethane 1,2-diamine solution, yes. Look at this, the change that you can observe here, yes. Of course, the reaction is reversible, right? Once again, 1 mole of ethane 1,2-diamine is going to replace 2 moles of water, and that results in, yes, it is Ni H2O 2 times, and of course En twice. And of course 2 plus. Once again, 2 moles of water will be replaced by, yes, it is 1 mole of ethane 1,2-diamine. And of course, this was blue colored solution, is it not? Pale blue colored solution. It will be changed to, yes, it is deep blue colored solution. The intensity of the blue color increases. That is influence of, yes, it is the ethane 1,2-diamine ligand on the color of the complex, that is NiH2O6 times 2 plus. In this case, 1 mole of nickel plus ion was mixed with 1 mole of ethane 1,2-diamine. And in this case, 1 mole of this particular complex is mixed with 2 moles. Here 1 mole, here 1 mole, that is 1:2 ratios, is it not? Then color is changed. Apart from that, if this complex is mixed with 1 more mole of, yes, it is ethane 1,2-diamine, yes, it is, that is H2O, and of course En twice, and of course 2 plus, and of course aqueous solution it is mixed with ethane 1,2-diamine. This is also aqueous solution, yes. Then look at this, all the water molecules are replaced by ethane 1,2-diamine, yes. In every step you can find 1 mole of ethane 1,2-diamine is going to replace 2 moles of water. Now it is, yes, it is tris ethane 1,2-diamine, nickel 2 ion. This is diaquo bis ethane 1,2-diamine, nickel 2 ion, is it not? And the color of this complex is violet. And this is what we call it as the change in the color of the complexes, because on adding ethane 1,2-diamine to the nickel 2 solution, is it not? Different types of complexes are produced. Therefore, these complexes are going to absorb different types of radiations. Thereby, they are going to produce different colors. This is what we call it as the example that I can make use of in order to study, yes, it is influence of ligand on the color of the complexes. And of course, all these solutions are, of course, aqueous solutions. All these solutions are aqueous solutions. Yes. So this is also aqueous solution. This is what we call it as the influence of ligand on the color of the complexes. Aggodala. This is the discussion that we have in NCERT textbook under the influence of ligand on, yes, it is color of the complexes. And now at this moment, I want to discuss one more important discussion that is there in our NCERT textbook, and of course, but that will not be asked in the annual examination. Once again, out of curiosity, once again, that is those questions may be expected in the competitive exams. I'm going to discuss, that is color of, yes, it is gemstones. And thus, these stones are going to produce, different types of colors. Color of gemstones. Under that, I'm going to take up, yes, it is ruby stone. Another is emerald stone. These are the stones that I am going to select under this particular discussion. One, it is ruby stone. Another is emerald stone. And as far as ruby stone is concerned, this is characterized by aluminum oxide, and of course mixed with, yes, it is Cr3 plus ions. Ruby stone is characterized by Al2O3, that is a crystal of alumina associated with Cr3 plus ions. And of course, generally, yes, it is red in color. This ruby stone, this ruby stone is red in color. As far as pure Al2O3 is concerned, pure Al2O3 is colorless crystal. And this pure Al2O3 is associated with impurity Cr3 plus ions. If this pure Al2O3 is mixed with, that is Cr3 plus ions, impurity that is, then it will get the color, that is, it will get red color. Why that ruby stone is characterized by red color anta ನೀವು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ, that is due to the presence of, yes, it is Cr3 plus ions in the lattice of alumina. That is due to the presence of Cr3 plus ions in the lattice of alumina. In the lattice of alumina is characterized by, yes, it is aluminum ions and oxide ions, is it not? In the crystal lattice of alumina, you can find Al3 plus ions and oxide ions. If I mix this Al2O3 crystal, with Cr3 plus ions. Some of the Al3 plus ions are replaced by Cr3 plus ions. That is, lattice sites of Al3 plus ions are occupied by Cr3 plus ions. And of course, in the lattice of Al2O3, these Cr3 plus ions are octahedrally surrounded by oxide ions. In the lattice of Al2O3, the Cr3 plus ions are, yes, it is surrounded by, yes, it is 6 oxide ions. They are acting like ligands. They are acting like ligands. Look at this. Cr3 plus ions are surrounded by 6 oxide ions. And thereby, this particular ruby stone is going to absorb radiation from green region of yes, it is VIBGYOR. This particular, yes, it is ruby stone is going to absorb radiation from green region of VIBGYOR and thereby transmits red color due to the presence of unpaired electrons in Cr3 plus ion. Unpaired electrons are there in Cr3 plus ions, and it absorbs the green radiation and transmits, yes, it is red radiation. Therefore, the color of the ruby stone is, yes, it is red in color. Apart from that, we have emerald stone. That is, this is one more crystal, that is emerald stone. The color of the emerald stone is what we call it as, yes, it is green colored stone. It is. This is green colored stone. Pure emerald is once again colorless. Generally, emerald is also known as a beryl mineral. It is. It's a beryl mineral. It's a mineral of, yes, it is beryllium and aluminium. It is characterized by silicates of aluminium and beryllium. It is characterized by silicates of beryllium and aluminium. This is beryl mineral, that is. This is what we call emerald stone. Pure emerald is colorless. And this emerald is associated with Cr3 plus ions. When this emerald is associated with Cr3 plus ion, it gets green color. When this pure emerald stone, if it is associated with Cr3 plus ions, then it gets green color. Why that green color? Once again, yes, it is due to the presence of unpaired electrons in Cr3 plus ions. They undergo DD transition. Now then, in the case of emerald, in the case of emerald, the radiation from red region of VIBGYOR will be absorbed. In the case of emerald stone containing Cr3 plus ions, that absorbs radiation from red region of VIBGYOR and transmits the radiation corresponding to the green color. That's why the color of the emerald stone is green there. Once again, Cr3 plus ions are characterized by unpaired electrons. The unpaired electrons present in Cr3 plus ions undergo DD transition by absorbing radiation in red region of VIBGYOR and transmits the radiation in green region. Therefore, color of emerald stone is green. Generally, question rises, why in emerald as well as the ruby stone, we have yes, it is Cr3 plus ions. So in ruby stone also we have Cr3 plus ion. In emerald also we have, yes, it is Cr3 plus ions. Still, the colors are different. That's because of the difference in host lattices. That's because of the difference in host lattices. In the case of ruby, the host is Al2O3 crystal, is it not? In the case of emerald, the host is the silicates of beryllium and, yes, it is aluminium. Silicates of beryllium and aluminium. The host crystals are different. Now the impurity is same, but host crystal is different. Because of that, there is a difference in color you can find. And as far as ruby is concerned, in the case of ruby, the distance between oxygen and chromium is less. The distance between, that is, the distance between chromium ion and oxygen is very, very less. There is a strong interaction. There is a strong interaction between metal ion and ligand. There is a strong interaction between metal ion and ligand. That increases delta O. In the case of ruby stone, delta O is high. Because of that high delta O, yes, it is. Because of that high delta O is because of crystal field stabilization energy. That is, the gap between T2G and EG is very, very high. Because of that high delta O, this particular complex, this particular, yes, it is ruby, is going to absorb radiation from the high energy region of, yes, it is high energy region of WebGuard. Now, if I move from violet to red, energy decreases. Red is characterized by low energy, is it not? Energy of red color is very, very less. The wavelength of red is very, very high. If wavelength is high, energy is less. Green is characterized by, yes, it is high energy. Because of that strong interaction, delta O increases. Because of that high delta O, the DD transition absorbs the radiation from green region, high energy region. Because that gap is more. For DD transition to take place, you need high energy radiation that will be absorbed by green region of, yes, it is WebGuard. Therefore, that ruby absorbs green color and transmits red color. Whereas in the case of emerald, the metal to ligand distance is a little bit longer. In the case of emerald, the distance between Cr3 plus ions and oxygen ligands will be little bit longer. If the distance is, yes, it is more. If the distance between metal and ligand is more, that is interaction is weak. If the distance between Cr3 plus ions and oxygen is more, interaction between ligand and, yes, it is Cr3 plus ions will be less. If the metal to ligand interaction is less, delta O will be less. That is, energy gap between T2G and EG will be less. Energy gap between T2G and EG will be less. Because of that, the small energy gap between T2G and EG, that emerald absorbs low energy radiation. For DD transition to take place, you need low energy radiation. However, because energy gap between T2G and EG is less, DD transition takes place easily by absorbing radiation of low energy, that is red. Therefore, emerald absorbs red color, transmits green color. Because of that, that emerald is characterized by green color. And of course, these are the things, I explained out of curiosity. You may have some curiosity on these aspects. Because of that, I took this particular topic under discussion. And of course, definitely in the annual examination, you never expect questions on this particular color of the ruby stones, right? Color of the gemstones. Okay, now at this moment, we'll come back to our discussion. That is, as far as your NCERT textbook is concerned, you are supposed to study limitations of crystal field theory there. As far as crystal field theory is concerned, no doubt crystal field theory is successfully explained. Geometry of the complexes, magnetic properties of the complexes, stability of the complexes. At the same time, even crystal field theory is able to explain color of the complexes. And it has given proper justification for the classification of ligands into strong and weak ligands. But in spite of all these things, this crystal field theory faces some drawbacks. As far as limitations of the crystal field theory are concerned, one of the limitations of crystal field theory is, according to crystal field theory, the coordinate bond between metal ion and ligand is electrostatic force of attraction. Because of that, we expect the negative ligands like I minus, Cl minus, F minus and Br minus. We expect these negative ligands to bring about maximum crystal field splitting, because that metal to ligand bond is electrostatic force of attraction. But it has been observed in spectrochemical series. But in spectrochemical series, we considered these ligands as weak field ligands. According to spectrochemical series, we considered these ligands as weak field ligands. But we expect these ligands to be acting like strong ligands. Because according to CFT, yes, it is that coordination bonding is electrostatic force of attraction. Accordingly, we expected negative ligands to behave like strong ligands. But if you observe the position of these ligands in the spectrochemical series, they are acting like, yes, it is weak ligands. That is one of the drawbacks. Apart from that, no doubt crystal field theory believes that coordinate bonding is ionic in nature. This crystal field theory doesn't take into consideration the covalent nature of coordinate bonding. Crystal field theory doesn't take into consideration the covalent nature of coordinate bonding. That is, coordinate bond is characterized by covalent nature also. That covalent nature of the coordinate bond will not be taken into account as far as crystal field theory is concerned. So that is the drawbacks of crystal field theory, and of course these drawbacks will be explained in the next theories, like ligand field theory and molecular orbital theory, and they are beyond the scope of this particular textbook. Okay, now, so this is what we call it as crystal field theory. Now at this moment, we'll go for the next discussion, that is bonding in, yes, it is metal carbonyls. Bonding in metal carbonyls. That is the next discussion. As far as metal carbonyls are concerned, they are organometallic compounds. Metal carbonyls are organometallic compounds. Organometallic compounds containing CO as ligand. Organometallic compounds containing carbon monoxide as ligand, they are called as metal carbonyls. And they are considered to be, that they are homoleptic complexes. They are homoleptic complexes, means they are the complexes containing only one type of ligand, that is carbon monoxide. That's why they are homoleptic complexes. So what's the meaning of that? Organometallic compounds. Organometallic compounds are the compounds where there is a direct linkage between carbon and metal. Any chemical substance containing direct linkage between carbon and metal, that is called as, yes, it is organometallic compound. You studied one of the organometallic compounds in organic chemistry, that is Grignard reagent or MgX. One of the organometallic compounds that you studied. Here, there is a direct linkage between carbon and magnesium, metal and carbon linkage. Any compound containing direct linkage between carbon and metal, that is called as organometallic compound. Here also, in the case of metal carbonyls, you can find a direct linkage between metal and carbon. Carbon is from carbon monoxide. That is what we call it as organometallic compound containing carbon monoxide as ligand. As far as the metal carbonyls are concerned, you are supposed to study some of the metal carbonyls, like that is NiCO 4 times. That is one metal carbonyl. That is tetracarbonyl nickel 0. That is another is FeCO 5 times, pentacarbonyl iron 0. One more is, that is Cr CO 6 times, hexacarbonyl chromium 0, and is cobalt 2, and of course CO 8 times. This is octacarbonyl dicobalt 0, then Mn2 CO 10 times. This is decacarbonyl dimanganese 0. These are the, yes, it is the carbonyls that you are supposed to study, especially structure of these carbonyls to be discussed. If it comes to this, it is nickel surrounded by, yes, it is 4 coordinate bonds between carbon monoxide and nickel there. This is tetrahedral complex, and you can observe here, you must show the direct linkage between nickel and carbon. Baribekadru kodanu correct agi you must connect carbon of the carbon monoxide to the metal. You cannot write randomly, like this. That is, you cannot write like this. No, oxygen is attached to nickel. You cannot write like this. You must connect carbon of carbon monoxide to the metal. Look at this. Here it is C. Okay, that's why whenever you are writing structures, you first connect carbon atoms to the, yes, it is metal first. This is one complex, tetrahedral complex, where 4 carbon monoxide molecules attached to the nickel through coordinate bonds. This is tetracarbonyl nickel 0 there. Oxidation state of nickel in nickel tetracarbonyl 0. Athwa oxidation state of central metal in metal carbonyls will be 0 here. This is tetrahedral complex. This is tetrahedral. The geometry of the complex is tetrahedral. If it comes to that FeCO 5 times, 5 carbon monoxide ligands attached to the iron here, that leads to the formation of, yes, it is trigonal bipyramidal geometry there. This is, you write 5 carbon atoms first like this. Carbon atoms birthbidding, right? Then you connect oxygen. Here it is oxygen. This 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 is what we call it as trigonal bipyramidal. Yes. 3 ligands are in one plane. One ligand is above the plane, another is below the plane, and this is IUPAC name is pentacarbonyl. Yes, it is iron 0. This is IUPAC name of this particular complex. Oh, and of course this is trigonal bipyramidal. Trigonal bipyramidal geometry. This is the geometry of the, yes, it is FeCO 5 times. And of course, in the case of, that is chromium complex, that 6 carbon monoxide molecules are attached to the chromium here. 6 carbon monoxide molecules are attached to the chromium through coordinate bonds. While writing structure, you first write C birthbidding. Then there is no possibility of connecting oxygen to the metal. First C birthbidding. Next, just distribute all the 6 ligands in octahedral fashion. This is octahedral complex. This is hexacarbonyl. This is hexacarbonyl. Chromium. Hexacarbonyl, chromium 0 there. And of course the complex is octahedral. The complex is octahedral. This is one more complex. Look here. 4 ligands are in one plane. Yes. One ligand is above the plane, another is below the plane. That octahedral geometry. Yes. So this is what we call the geometry of the 3 complexes, right? And as far as the 4th one is concerned, we'll see that octacarbonyl dicobalt 0 one thing. Octacarbonyl dicobalt 0 there. We'll see that. As far as that complex is concerned, look at this. Here, in the case of that particular complex, there is a direct linkage between, yes, it is 2 cobalt atoms. 2 cobalt atoms are linked through, yes, it is 2 carbon monoxide bridges. You can find here 2 carbon monoxide bridges. Make out the difference. Cobalt and carbon monoxide. That is very important. But this is CO ತರ okay na? That's very important. Look at this. Let me write once again. Yes, you must write cobalt, capital C, small o, capital C, small o, capital C, small o. These cobalt atoms are linked through carbon monoxide molecule, carbon monoxide bridges. These cobalt atoms are linked through carbon monoxide bridges. There are 2 carbon monoxide bridges. You can find here C capital, O capital. C capital, small o. Idana gamanisbeku. Yes. And remaining, yes, it is, will be, yes, it is, each cobalt is attached to, yes, it is 3 carbon monoxide molecules. Like this, this is CO, CO, and CO there. This is CO, this is CO, and of course CO there. Look at this. CO, C capital, O capital, C capital, O capital. This is also correct agi gamanisbeku. Metal cobalt matra capital C small o baribeku. Carbon monoxide capital C capital O. Idina ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಗಮನಿಸಬೇಕು. Yes, this is what we call the structure of this particular. Yes, it is CO 2 times, CO 8 times. This is octacarbonyl. Yes, it is dicobalt. Octacarbonyl dicobalt 0 there. Yes. Okay, now this is what we call it as. Yes, it is structure of. Yes, it is. That is CO2, CO8 times. If you look at the structure of, yes, it is Mn2, CO 10 times. Its structure is a combination of, yes, it is, it's a combination of square pyramids of this particular unit. The square pyramids of 2 MnCO5 times is linked through manganese atoms. No, Mn2 CO10 times andre MnCO5 times, this is 1/2, and 2 MnCO 5 times units are joined through Mn to Mn single bonds. You are going to get, yes, it is structure there. Look at this. Let me write that. That is Mn. Yes, it is square pyramid. First you write square pyramid of MnCO 5 times first. Right? The square pyramid of MnCO 5 times. This is C. This is C. This is C. This is C and this is C, right? And of course, 5 carbon monoxide molecules attached to manganese, right? This is one square pyramid. This is square pyramid. This is one square pyramid. 4 ligands in one plane, one ligand is above the plane. That will form one pyramid, square pyramid. And below that you write one more, yes, it is square pyramid, yes. In the below that, you write one more square pyramid, that is Mn, yes, CO, yes. And this is CO, and this is CO, and this is CO, and this is one more square pyramid. Here it is, yes, it is. This is CO, and of course this is CO, this is CO, this is CO, and of course this will be, yes, it is one more. This is two square pyramids, they are linked through Mn to Mn single bond, yes. And this is one more square pyramid, yes. You can find here 2 square pyramids. Yes. Here, in this case, one pyramid is pointing upward, another pyramid is pointing downward. This is what we call structure of, yes, it is Mn2CO 10 times decacarbonyl. Decacarbonyl manganese 0, dimanganese. Decacarbonyl dimanganese 0, that is. Deca means 10 carbon monoxide molecules and 2 manganese, Mn2CO 10 times. And it is a combination of, yes, it is the 2 square pyramids of MnCO 5 times. So that is what we call it as the structure of some of the metal carbonyls. Now let us see the next topic as far as your NCERT textbook is concerned, that is bonding in metal carbonyls. And I will make use of, yes, it is molecular orbital theory in order to explain, yes, it is bonding there. That is, in the case of metal carbonyls, that is, there is a metal to carbon bond, yes. There is a metal to carbon bond. The metal to carbon bond in metal carbonyl shows sigma as well as pi characters. Metal to carbon bond in metal carbonyls shows properties of sigma bond as well as properties of pi bond. That is the one important observation that you can have in the case of metal carbonyls. That is, as far as metal to carbon sigma bond is concerned. Metal to carbon sigma bond is concerned. This metal to carbon sigma bond is produced by donation of electron pairs. It is produced by donation of electron pairs from carbonyl carbon. It is due to the donation of electron pairs from carbonyl carbon into vacant orbitals of metal. This is how that metal to carbon sigma bond is produced. Metal to carbon sigma bond is produced by the donation of electron pairs from carbonyl carbon to carbonyl carbon into vacant orbitals of metal there. Let me show you that here it is. As far as the diagram of this particular, yes, it is metal carbonyl bonding is concerned. Look at this. If I say this is metal, yes, metal is characterized by, yes, it is vacant orbitals. Let me represent vacant orbital like this. As far as carbon monoxide is concerned, you can find, yes, it is a triple bond between carbon and oxygen. This is carbon monoxide, yes, and this is characterized by, yes, it is orbitals containing, yes, it is lone pair of electrons. Generally we call it as sigma orbitals, right? Generally it is called as sigma molecular orbitals because a molecule of carbon monoxide is characterized by sigma molecular orbitals as well as pi molecular orbitals. This metal to carbon sigma bond is produced by the donation of electron pairs from carbonyl carbon into the, yes it is, vacant orbitals of, into the vacant orbitals of, yes it is, metal ion. Yes, look at this. This is what we call it as, yes it is, donation of electron pairs from carbonyl carbon into the vacant orbitals of metal, and that results in the formation of sigma bond. That results in the formation of sigma bond. Yes. And how that metal to carbon pi bonding is possible? Metal to carbon pi bond is produced by the donation of electron pairs from, yes it is, filled d orbitals, filled d orbitals of, yes it is, metal. That is, metal to carbon pi bond is produced by donation of electron pairs from filled d orbitals of metal into vacant pi star anti-bonding molecular orbitals of carbon monoxide. I said carbon monoxide is characterized by molecular orbitals, sigma molecular orbitals as well as pi molecular orbitals. In the case of carbon monoxide, pi star anti-bonding molecular orbital is vacant. And this metal to carbon sigma pi bond is formed by the donation of electron pairs from filled d orbitals. Sigma bonding is because of donation of electron pairs from carbonyl carbon into the vacant orbitals of metal. But pi bonding takes place in the reverse direction. Pi bonding takes place in the reverse direction. This metal is characterized by some, yes it is, filled orbitals, right? Metal is characterized by some filled d orbitals. Metal is characterized by some filled d orbitals. So the filled d orbitals are the d orbitals containing lone pair of electrons. So the d orbitals containing lone pair of electrons. This is metal containing filled d orbital. And metal to carbon pi bond is produced by donation of electron pairs from filled d orbitals of metal into the vacant pi star anti-bonding molecular orbital. You know, you might be studied in first PUC, that is the shape of the, yes it is, anti-bonding pi molecular orbital. Is it not? And this metal to carbon pi bond is produced by the donation of, yes it is, electron pairs from, yes it is, metal to filled d orbitals of metal to, yes it is, yes it is, yes it is. This is how that pi bonding is produced. That is what we call back donation, we call it as. Generally, metal ion is going to accept the electron pairs from the ligands, is it not? That happened here. That sigma bond is formed by the donation of electron pairs from carbonyl carbon into the, yes it is, vacant orbitals of metal. Whereas pi bonding is taking place in reverse direction. That's why it is called back donation. The pi bonding is due to the donation of electron pairs from filled d orbitals of metal into the vacant pi star anti-bonding molecular orbitals of carbon monoxide, and that results in what we call it as pi bond. Don't think that two pi bonds alla matte. Onde pi bond. Yes, ಎರಡು ಸೇರಿ ಒಂದು pi bond. ಇದು ಒಂದು pi bond. ಎರಡು ಸೇರಿ ಒಂದು pi bond. ಇದು ಒಂದು sigma bond. Yes, sigma bond takes place by the donation of electron pairs from carbonyl carbon to the metal ion, vacant orbitals of metals, whereas pi bond is formed by the donation of electron pairs from filled orbitals of metal into the vacant pi star anti-bonding molecular orbitals of, yes it is, carbon monoxide. This is what we call back donation, and that results in one effect, what we call it as synergic effect anta agutte. That leads to synergic effect. As far as synergic effect is concerned, here in the case of metal carbonyls, sigma bonding is weak, pi bond is also weak. Therefore, you know, the effect of sigma bond formation strengthens pi bond. The effect of pi bond formation strengthens sigma bond. The effect of formation of one bond strengthens the other bond. What I said? The effect of formation of sigma bond strengthens pi bond and vice versa. That's why now it is called as synergic effect. As far as the meaning of synergic is concerned, synergic ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಏನು? Working together towards the same goal. Goal is what? Stability here. Both the bonds are working towards the same goal to attain stability. The effect of formation of sigma bond strengthens the pi bond in the same manner. The effect of formation of pi bond strengthens sigma bond. That is what we call synergic effect found in the metal to carbon bonding in metal carbonyls. And of course, here the pi bond is produced by back donation of electron pairs from filled d orbitals into the vacant pi star molecular orbitals of carbon monoxide. Means carbon monoxide is accepting electron pairs from the metal. That leads to the formation of pi bond. That's why carbon monoxide is pi acceptor ligand. And of course, not only carbon monoxide, we have NO plus, Cn minus. They are also, yes, it is pi acceptor ligands. Because these two are isoelectronic with carbon monoxide. Verify madibekana. Number of electrons in carbon monoxide will be 14. 6 plus 8. Number of electrons in nitric oxide. Yes, it is 7 plus 8 tane. Atomic number of nitrogen is 7. Oxygen is 8. Yes, 15. NO plus and 14. CH2 6 plus 7. Atomic number of carbon is 6. Atomic number of nitrogen is 7. 39. Minus 3 is plus 1. That means all these three species are characterized by 14 electrons. They are isoelectronic species. All are pi acceptor ligands. And of course, because of that ability of yes, it is pi interaction in the case of carbon monoxide. This carbon monoxide brings about maximum crystal field splitting because of that pi interaction ability of carbon monoxide with metal. That carbon monoxide brings about maximum crystal field splitting. Therefore, carbon monoxide is a strong ligand. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನೋಡಿ spectrochemical series ಅಲ್ಲಿ carbon monoxide was placed at the end. That is what I said. It was considered as a strong ligand. ಹೌದಾ? Because of that ability of pi interaction with metal. ಹೌದಾ? Ability of that pi interaction with metal. So that that brings about maximum crystal field splitting. That's why carbon monoxide is a strong ligand. So this is what we call it as bonding in metal carbonyls. Okay na? So this is what we call it as. Now let us see, as far as your NCERT textbook is concerned, you are supposed to study what we call it as stability of the complexes now. What we call it as stability of the complexes. Stability of complexes in solution refers to the degree of association of two species involved in equilibrium state of that particular association. That is called as stability of complexes. This is stability of, let us see, association of, yes, it is metal and ligand in solution, to form a metal complex of the type Ml4. I call it as association. There is a association of, yes, it is metal and, yes, it is 4 ligands. There is association of metal and 4 ligands to form a complex Ml4. If I reverse this, Ml4 into M plus 4L anta badre, this is called dissociation, is it not? This association is the reverse of dissociation, but I am talking about association of metal and ligand in solution. And as far as solution is concerned, solution is characterized by solvent molecules. And this particular metal ion in solution, is interacting with, yes, it is not only ligands but also with solvent molecules. Even solvent molecules of solution, they are trying to associate with, yes, it is metal ion. Even the solvent molecules in solution, they are trying to form association with, yes, it is metal ion. They are trying to form bonds with metal ion. But here, in this particular discussion, we have ignored the association of solvent molecules with metal ion. We have ignored association of solvent molecules with, yes, it is metal ions. And as far as yes, it is stability of the complexes is concerned, The magnitude of stability of the complexes will be measured in terms of, yes, it is stability constant. The magnitude of stability of the complexes can be measured in terms of, yes, it is stability constant. That is, this is one particular physical quantity that I can make use of in order to express stability of the complexes quantitatively. This is one physical quantity that I can make use of in order to express stability of the complexes quantitatively. What is that stability constant, Antandra? This stability constant is just an equilibrium constant K. The stability constant is just an equilibrium constant K. You know, equilibrium constant K is equal to molar concentration of complex, that is product Ml4, divided by molar concentration of reactants, that is M into, yes, it is L to the power 4. You know, by applying law of mass action, I can write that equilibrium constant K as, that's equal to the product of molar concentration of products divided by product of molar concentration of reactants, with each concentration terms raised to power equal to stoichiometric coefficients. This is what we call stability constant, that is equilibrium constant. I can make use of this particular equilibrium constant value in order to express stability of the complexes. You know, this equilibrium constant value directly related to the concentration of complex formed here. This is a complex. And value of equilibrium constant is directly related to the molar concentration of, yes, it is Ml4, that is a complex. The amount of the complex formed increases as the degree of association between metal ion and ligand increases. As the degree of association between metal ion and ligand increases, the amount of complex formed also increases. As the amount of complex formed increases, K value increases. Therefore, as K value increases, stability of the complex increases. This is how I can relate stability of complexes with stability constant. That is the value that I can make use of in order to compare stability of the complexes. And as far as this particular formation of this complex is concerned, I am going to represent formation of this complex in stepwise. Look at this first step, that is M in solution, and of course that reacts with, yes, it is L, that is in solution. Now that leads to the, yes, it is what we call it as, in the first step you are going to get Ml. 1 mole of M combines with 1 mole of L, and you are going to get, yes, it is Ml there. And the stepwise equilibrium constant K1 is equal to product divided by reactant, that's equal to molar concentration of Ml divided by molar concentration of M into molar concentration of L. This is first one, is it not? In the second step, you know, this Ml, that reacts with one more molecule of ligand, yes, that leads to what? Yes, it is Ml2, that is in aqueous solution. Okay, now this is equilibrium constant for the first step, this is equilibrium constant for the second step, that is K2 is equal to what? Yes, it is Ml2, product is Ml2 divided by Ml into L, that is Ml into, yes, it is L. This is equilibrium constant for the second step. As far as third step is concerned, that is Ml2 in solution may combine with one more molecule of ligand, and that leads to what? Yes, it is Ml3. It is in aqueous solution, that is, we are going to get K3 there, that's equal to, yes, it is Ml3 divided by L, that is Ml2 into, yes, it is L. Is it not? This is product divided by reactant. So then this is what we call stepwise equilibrium constant of this particular step. In the third step, Ml3, yes, it is in aqueous solution, combines with one more L there, ligand, that leads to, yes, it is Ml4, yes, it is aqueous, that leads to what? That is K4, right? That's equal to Ml4 divided by, yes, it is Ml3 into, yes, it is L. This is what we call, yes, it is. And of course, here, as far as, look at this, these are the, yes, it is stepwise representation of the formation of the complexes, that is Ml4, formation of complex Ml4 here. Yes, okay, now? And if I add this, all these equations, if I add all these equations, look at this, cancel the common terms in opposite direction. Cancel the common terms in opposite direction, Ml3, right? Okay, you left with what? Yes, it is M. In the reactant side, you left with M. In the product side, sorry, in the reactants you left with M. Another is 4 moles of L, that is 4L. That is 4L. And of course, that gives the product side you left with what? Only Ml4. This is what we call it as the complex S. And of course, these are the stepwise association constants. These are the stepwise association constant. And look at this. If I say this, if I write overall association constant of this particular reaction, overall association constant of that particular reaction is given by beta 4 anta karite, because we have 4 steps anta ಹೇಳಿ. Overall association constant of that, yes, it is the final step is that's equal to, yes, it is the product of all stepwise association constant, that is K1 into K2 into K3 and of course K4. Yes. Okay. If you multiply K1, K2 and K3, this is LHS. K1 into K2 into K3. RHS and multiply madre, you are going to get, yes, it is the expression that corresponds to the, yes, it is overall association constant, that is Ml4 divided by, yes, it is M into, yes, it is L to the power 4. RHS ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ನೀವು ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ರಿ, ನೀವು 4 ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ you are going to get this expression, and it is what we call it as, for this particular expression, the overall association constant is, yes, it is Ml4, is it not? Product is Ml4 divided by reactant, that is M into, yes, it is L to the power of 4. This is overall association constant of this particular reaction. Yes. And that beta 4 is equal to what? Yes, it is product of stepwise association constants of individual steps. And it has been observed that, that is K1 is greater than K2 and of course it is greater than K3 and then greater than K4. As the number of steps increases, that association constant goes on decreasing. Yes. So this is what we call it as overall association constant is equal to product of individual association constants of all the steps, and that is what we call it as stability of the complexes. Okay, now I can make use of this association constant value beta 4, overall association constant value K beta 4, in order to measure, in order to compare stability of the complexes. As the value of beta 4 increases, stability of the complex increases, right? And in order to, yes, it is justify this particular discussion, yes, you are supposed to study, yes, one example for the, yes, it is association of, yes, it is metal ion and ligand to form one complex, that is formation of, yes, it is cuproammonium complex. Cu plus 2 combines with, yes, it is 4 ammonia molecules, right? Of course, in aqueous medium, right? That leads to the formation of one complex, that is Cu NH3 4 times, and it is 2 plus. This is one complex, is it not? As far as the association constant of this particular complex is concerned, that is K, overall association constant, that's equal to product, yes, it is Cu NH3 4 times, that is 2 plus, molar concentration of product divided by molar concentration of reactant Cu plus 2 into, yes, it is NH3 to the power 4. For this particular reaction, I can write the expression for association constant as like this: product divided by reactants. And of course, as far as stepwise association constants are concerned, in the first step, we have Cu2 plus in aqueous medium reacts with 1 mole of ammonia in aqueous medium. Look at this. That leads to what? Yes, it is Cu NH3 and of course 2 plus, right? And of course, right, K1 is equal to Cu NH3 2 plus divided by, yes, it is molar concentration of Cu2 plus into molar concentration of ammonia there. Second step only, that is Cu NH3, yes, it is 2 plus in the first step, combines with 1 more, yes, it is ammonia to form, yes, it is Cu NH3, yes, it is 2 times, and of course 2 plus, right? And of course, for that, that is K2 is equal to, association constant K2 is equal to Cu NH3, yes, it is 4 times, and NH3 2 times, 2 plus divided by, yes, it is Cu, yes, it is NH3 2 plus into, yes, it is NH3 there. This is, yes, it is for the second step. As far as third step is concerned, right? For the third step, you can write like this, that is Cu NH3 2 times 2 plus NH3 there. That gives, yes, it is. You can write reversible symbol in all the cases, right? This is reversible symbol. That leads to what? Yes, it is Cu NH3 3 times 2 plus. Howda? And of course, as far as K3 is concerned, product divided by reactant Cu NH3 3 times, and of course 2 plus, right? Divided by, yes, it is Cu NH3 2 times 2 plus into, yes, it is ammonia there. Howda? This is third stepwise association constant. And for the fourth step, in the fourth step, Cu NH3 3 times, and of course 2 plus combines with 1 more mole of ammonia there. Okay, that leads to Cu NH3 4 times 2 plus. And of course, K4 is equal to, yes, it is Cu NH3 4 times 2 plus divided by Cu NH3 3 times 2 plus, and of course it is NH3 there. And of course, these are the stepwise association constant of for the formation of this particular complex. And overall association constant beta 4, that's equal to K, that is once again K1 into K2 into K3, and of course K4. Once again, you just go for ಎಲ್ಲ LHS ಅನ್ನು ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿ RHS ಅನ್ನು ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಫೈನಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಈ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಪ್ರಕಾರ that is what we call it as overall association constant beta 4. So this is what we call it as product of association constants of individual steps. And of course, as I said, as the number of steps increases, association constant value goes on decreasing. That is, K1 is greater than K2, K2 is greater than K3, K3 is greater than K4. If there are 5 steps, it is beta 5. K5 ಬರುತ್ತೆ. If there are 6 steps, it is beta 6. Then it is K4 into K5 into K6 ಈ ತರ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So this is what we call it as the association constant, or you can say stability constant, that I can make use of in order to study stability of the complexes. And inverse of stability constant is instability constant ಅಥವಾ dissociation constant. Okay na? So this is what we call it as stability of the constant. I can make use stability constant is just an equilibrium constant for the association of two species. For the association reaction, if I apply law of mass action, whatever the equilibrium constant value that I am getting, yes, it is, that is what we call association constant. As the degree of association increases, molar concentration of complex increases. If molar concentration of complex increases, equilibrium constant value increases. If equilibrium constant value increases, that is stability of the complex increases. And that is what we call it as the discussion there. Agudala? Yes. So this is what we call it as stability constant. And the last discussion with this chapter is applications of, yes, it is the coordination compounds as far as our day-to-day life is concerned. So with respect to this applications, so this particular complexes, they have got their own importance in our day-to-day life. Complexes are characterized by color. That property of complexes to form colored compounds can be used in qualitative analysis as well as quantitative analysis of chemical substances. That is one application. At the same time, that is in the determination of hardness of water. Hard water is characterized by calcium ions and magnesium ions. In order to determine amount of calcium ions and magnesium ions present in hard water, I can make use of this one particular complex, that is EDTA, sodium salt of EDTA. And this sodium salt of EDTA can form a complex with calcium and magnesium ions, and thereby I can bring about estimation of hardness of water. Because of that, here also we are making use of the complex chemistry there, the chemistry of complexes, where EDTA is acting like a ligand that form a complex with magnesium and calcium ions. That's why in the determination of hardness of water, we make use of chemistry of complexes, where we titrate the hard water by making use of, yes, it is standard solution of sodium salt of EDTA. That is the chemistry of complexes will be used in the determination of hardness of water. Apart from that, I can make use of, yes, it is certain complexes, especially that is Wilkinson's catalyst. I can make use of Wilkinson's catalyst. Wilkinson's catalyst is, it's a complex of rhodium with chloro group and of course triphenyl phosphine. This is what we call it as Wilkinson's catalyst, that is. I can make use of this Wilkinson's catalyst, a complex of rhodium with triphenyl phosphine, that is in the hydrogenation of oils. In the hydrogenation of oils, I can make use of this particular catalyst. Once again, this is also a coordination compound. This is also a complex compound, that is. Complexes can be used as catalyst. Apart from that, you know that green pigment in plants responsible for the photosynthesis. That green pigment in plants is a complex of magnesium. Once again, the chemistry of complexes is responsible for the photosynthesis there. In our body, blood is characterized by hemoglobin, is it not? Hemoglobin transports oxygen from lungs to the tissues. And that hemoglobin itself is a complex of Fe2 plus ions. There also we'll find the chemistry of complexes will be utilized in the transportation of oxygen from lungs to the tissues there. Apart from that, you know the importance of the vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is a complex of cobalt and that plays a vital role in our body, is it not? Apart from that, varieties of enzymes in our body, they are coordination compounds. Varieties of enzymes present in our body are also complex compounds they are. The role of enzymes, they are going to catalyze various biochemical reactions. That is, some enzymes in our body, they are also complexes. Apart from that, the property of complexes, can be utilized even in the field of medicine also. That as far as the treatment of the diseases is concerned, we have one modern therapy that is called as chelate therapy. What we call it as chelate therapy, that is. That chelate therapy, the principles of chelate therapy, that is therapy where is treatment of diseases by using, yes it is, the complexes produced by that is chelate ligands with metal ion. That is what we call it as chelate therapy. That can be used in the treatment of lead poisoning. In lead poisoning, we can make use of this chelate therapy where we make use of EDTA. Yes, we make use of this EDTA that will form a chelate complex with lead there. In lead poisoning, we need to remove this lead from our body, and lead compounds are insoluble in water. Therefore, it is difficult to remove these lead compounds from our body. Because of that, when EDTA is used, EDTA converts insoluble lead compounds into soluble lead compounds by forming a complex with lead ions. So if lead is converted to a soluble form, that soluble form of lead can be removed from our body, is it not? So that is what we call it as EDTA can be used in the treatment of lead poisoning. Apart from that, we have, yes, it is cisplatin, one of the complexes of platinum that can be used in the treatment of cancer, is it not? In the treatment of cancer, we make use of, yes, it is cisplatin there. So this is what we call one more application of complexes. Apart from that, especially in black and white photography, the developed photographic film is fixed by washing that photographic film with sodium thiosulfate solution, that is hypo solution. In black and white photography, the developed photographic film is fixed, by washing that photographic film with sodium thiosulfate solution. Because that developed photographic film is characterized by undecomposed silver bromide. Developed photographic film is characterized by, yes, it is undecomposed silver bromide. And that photographic film is, yes, it is washed with sodium thiosulfate, Sodium thiosulfate, that sodium thiosulfate, that produces ligand thiosulfate ions. These thiosulfate ions will form a complex with, yes, it is silver ions. And that is a soluble complex, that is Ag, S2O3 twice, and of course 3 minus. This is a complex of silver ion with thiosulfate. Here also there is a complex chemistry. There is a complex chemistry. That is, the developed photographic film can be fixed by washing a photographic film with hypo solution, and that removes undecomposed silver bromide into a soluble form. Yes, so that is what we call it as. Yes, it is the another application. Apart from that, in the extraction of gold from its ore, we make use of chemistry of complexes where we are going to extract gold by treating, gold ore with cyanide solution. Now, cyanide will form a complex of with gold, that is AuCl Cn twice, and of course, yes, it is minus. That is the cyanide will form. Yes, it is a complex with. Yes, it is the gold present in a ore. And from this complex solution, I can separate. Yes, it is. I can separate this gold from this particular complex by adding zinc there. Is it not? So this is what we call it as one more application in the extraction of gold and silver from their ores. We make use of complex chemistry, where these metals are extracted by converting them into their respective complex using cyanide solution. From the cyanide solution, the required metal can be separated by adding highly reactive metals like zinc and magnesium. Apart from that, you just remember that is purification of nickel by Mond's process. The purification of nickel by Mond's process. We make use of that is we convert that nickel into, yes, it is nickel tetracarbonyl. Here also we make use of chemistry of the complexes. We convert that, nickel present in the impure nickel into nickel tetracarbonyl, and it is highly volatile. When it is heated to a high temperature, it will be decomposed into a pure metal. This is here also in the purification of nickel by Mond's process. We make use of chemistry of complexes, and that is what we call it as applications of nickel there. Is it not? So this is coordination chemistry. Okay, na? And that's all for now. And thank you very much. Okay, na? Yes.